Hey, everybody. It's August 4th, 2024, Sunday, and it's about 5 p.m. right now. I am David. This CP3D podcast is just going to be me. Charles, CP3D stands, of course, for Douglas Domke Daily podcast. But Charles got some things going on, and Dr. Terry Ann Scott of the Institute for Common Power, who would be a really great person to have on this particular podcast, is not available. And so I'm going to do this one solo. And good for them, both of them. They extremely busy, as was our entire staff, the last several days with a retreat and with a kickoff for our campaign work this fall in the field. One of the great privileges and fulfillments of the work of Common Power is to know that we walk in a larger arc of American or world history, that we have a particular space to contribute to, that like any arch that is in a doorway and holds up the wall or makes room for the door or holds up on a road or an aqueduct or anything like that. Every stone matters in that arch. And so when you think about an arc, drawing or completing or building an arc that eventually forms an arch, you know that you have to do your part, to do our piece. Today's August 4th, 2024, and today is the 60th anniversary of the finding of the bodies of three civil rights workers in Meridian, Mississippi. James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Mickey Schwerner. They had been there in what was known as Neshoba County, Mississippi, registering voters and working with people fighting for racial and voting and democratic justice. And they had been murdered. They had disappeared several weeks earlier in June, on the first day of Freedom Summer, when workers from all over the country, young people in particular, had come south to help register voters in the American South, specifically in the most dangerous part of the American South, in the Delta of Mississippi. And they had been killed. Chaney was a Mississippian, native Mississippian, African-American young man. And Schwerner and Goodman were New Yorkers, both white and both Jewish. And Schwerner had been working in Mississippi with James Chaney for some time and had drawn the attention and energy and outrage and hostility and hate of many white Mississippians, because he was a white man working for the freedom and liberation of African Americans. And he was doing it with them as well. We honored their work today in this world by doing all that we can to advance the cause of justice and democracy and equality and respect and dignity and brotherhood and sisterhood and fellowship together, folks. Common Power is committed to the work of the most common power that all people should have in a democracy, the right to be able to register to vote and then to cast that vote. And we understand the baton must get passed over time, and we are doing our best to carry that baton from the work of those people in that era. To understand the importance and the power and the courage and the determination and the strength and the the sacredness of Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman, I want to play a speech that John Lewis, the great civil rights hero John Lewis, who's a poster with him on it is always over my shoulder on my wall in my office as a reminder to me about the importance of voting and about living your life with a certain integrity and commitment to nonviolence and community. That John Lewis delivered a speech that he delivered on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives in June 2008. As we catalyze that, catalyze isn't the right word, as we cascaded, as we moved along in that election to a monumental moment in American history, the election of our first African-American president, Barack Obama. Lewis delivered these words, and I think they echo to us today as we move along with the potential to elect the first female, the first Black American female, the first Southeast Asian female to the top office, the presidency of this country. At Common Power, we never think we created this fight, and we also never doubt that we have a role to play in it, and that is all of us, every one of us. Here's the great Congressman, John Lewis.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to the courage and conviction of three young men, Andy Goodman, James Cheney, and Michael Schwerner. On June 21st, 1964, they gave their lives in the struggle for voting rights in America. There was a time just 44 years ago when it was almost impossible in the American South for people of color to register and vote. Then I was 24 years old and the chair of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, better known as SNCC. I traveled around the country encouraging young people to come to Mississippi to get involved with the Freedom Summer, the summer of 1964. At that time, the state of Mississippi had a Black population of voting age of more than 450,000, but only about 18,000 Blacks were registered to vote. It was dangerous, very dangerous, for those of us who believe that everyone should have the right to vote. But in spite of the risk, there were people, young and old, black and white, rich and poor, people like Andy Goodman, James Cheney, and Mickey Schwerner, who put aside the comfort of their own lives to make sure that every citizen had free and fair access to the ballot, not only in Mississippi, but throughout America. Mickey Schwerner was a 24-year-old white man from Brooklyn, New York, was already a participant in the movement. Andy Goodman was also white, was 21-year-old, a student at Queen College in New York. James Cheney was a 21-year-old African-American man from Meridian, Mississippi, who decided to take a stand for justice in his own community, in his own state. On the morning of June 21st, 1964, these three young men drove to Lawndale, Mississippi to investigate the burning of an African-American church. On their way back, they were arrested, at least detained by the sheriff and taken to jail in Philadelphia, Mississippi. That same evening, they were released from the jail by the sheriff and turned over to the Klan. They were beaten, shot, and killed. Their burnt blue Ford station wagon was pulled from a creek just 2 days later. I joined the search for them that night with a very heavy heart. Their bodies were found a few weeks later, about 6 weeks later, on August 4th, 1964, buried under a mound of dirt. Madam Speaker, I share this story today so that members of Congress will realize that the struggle for civil rights has been a long, hard road, littered by the battered and broken bodies of countless men and women who paid the ultimate price for a precious right, the right to vote, the right to participate in the democratic process. Andy Goodman, James Chaney, and Mickey Schwerner did not die in Europe. They did not die in Asia or in Africa. They did not die in Central America or in the Middle East. They died right here in America, in the American South. I knew these three young men. So, Madam Speaker, I urge all of my colleagues to vote for this resolution to pay tribute to these three young men and so many others who died in the struggle for voting rights in America. We must never forget their sacrifices, for their suffering, their pain, and their death. As members of the United States House of Representatives, it is our duty, our mission, our mandate to make sure these young men did not die in vain. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The words of John Lewis on the floor of the House of Representatives in June 2008, commemorating the service, the courage, the determination, the work of James Chaney, Mickey Schwerner, Andrew Goodman. John Lewis notes that these folks, these three men, did not die other places around the world. They died, they were killed, they were murdered in the United States. And he calls us to make sure that these lives did not die in vain, that these men did not die in vain. His language of that they did not die in vain echoes from a speech given by Abraham Lincoln in 1863 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where he went to commemorate the fight, the Battle of Gettysburg. That was the decisive turning kind of inflection point / turning point moment in the Civil War of this country, in which he says that it's up to us, in which Lincoln said it is up to us, the living, to make sure that these heroes did not die in vain. 60 years later, we know that the work of Schwerner, Goodman, and Chaney, and so many others, helped to propel the passage of two of the most important pieces of legislation in American small d democratic history, the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. They helped to drive the passage of both of these. It was in July of 1964, in the midst of Freedom Summer, that the United States passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination in public accommodations and is still the basis of so many laws about equality and freedom in this country. And it was in August of 1965 that the United States legislation, Congress, and then Lyndon Johnson as president, passed and signed the Voting Rights Act, which made the United States, for the very first time, really, a democracy where everybody's vote, everybody's opportunity to vote, was given legal protections. Today is August 4th, The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed and signed on August 6th, 2 days from now. 2 days to a year, 1 year and 2 days to after the murders, after the bodies were found in Mississippi of James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Mickey Schwerner. On Tuesday of this week, 2 days from now, August 6th, we will celebrate that passage of the Voting Rights Act and uphold a program that we have in the Institute for Common Power called Educators for Democracy, in which teachers from around the country and also around the world, two from outside the United States, have participated in learning tours where we go to the American South, to Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and Mississippi to learn about the work of these before us and to be instilled with the determination to teach truth, accuracy, democracy, integrity, to build a more just and inclusive society. Those Educators for Democracy we have been fortunate to take more than 100 of them on trips, and they have become a tight-knit community across these trips and are now becoming a political presence in the fight for democracy. We will talk about this program. We will celebrate these educators. We will honor the Voting Rights Act. We will recommit to the work ahead of us. We will play our role. We will contribute our position in building and bending the arc of American history. On Tuesday from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific time on Zoom. Invite you all to come to this. I'll include the registration link in this email when I send out this podcast today. On one of those trips to the South, when we take teachers, and we've done this also with many, many more people, we get the chance to go to meet with a gentleman in Neshoba County, Mississippi, where the workers were killed. And this gentleman is an amazing civil rights warrior. And I won't mention him by name here because I haven't run it past him that I was going to talk about him in this podcast. But he gives tours and trips and learning experiences to people from all over the world who come to Mississippi, to Neshoba. And he takes us to the location where the murders were done. And we stand there and we talk, and he talks to us. And it is one of the most devastatingly difficult places I've ever been. And he says, we got to come here so that we don't forget the past. That as bad as this is here, he said, we can still come today, and often interracial groups. And we will carry forward this work, this fight for racial justice, for democracy, for what John Lewis called the work of our lifetimes, a multiracial democracy. And so we do at Common Power. That's what we do. I get the fortune to work with 3 other colleagues who are the directors, Executive Director Charles Douglas, and then 3 other directors. 2 others and myself, Dr. Terry Ann Scott, Larcy Douglas, and myself. We are the 4 folks who kind of jointly run this organization. Charles himself, the son of a Black Panther from Louisiana and from Oakland, who helped him to understand the importance of contributing his part in bending the arc. And so today, folks, we are in the middle of the moment of our lifetimes. We stand here in the middle of the competition, the contest to elect Kamala Harris against one of the most dangerous men to ever have the chance to lead in this country, Donald Trump. In 2008, when John Lewis delivered those words that we heard, we were engaged in the fight to elect Barack Obama against in a presidential contest against John McCain. John McCain was an American patriot and a hero who had fought with his life on the line for democracy as he understood it. He was committed to this experiment. Had Obama lost, it would have been very, very sad, very hard, very disappointing. But McCain would have carried forward with integrity the leadership of this country. And indeed, he did after that election in his own work as a U.S. Senator. So much so that when he passed away, he asked the man who was he had arranged for the man who is president today, Joseph Biden, to deliver the eulogy at his funeral. And Joe Biden did that. But today, if Kamala Harris doesn't win, the man who will be president will be Donald Trump. And this will be his second crack at it. And this time, he's going to do what he gave it every shot to do before. He's going to destroy the democracy that others have fought to build. He's going to do it for his own purposes without any care and concern for others. We have the responsibility to make that not a future that we come to. August 4th, 2024 is 3 months from Election Day, but it's only a little over 30 days. I think it's 34 days, 35 maybe, to when the first ballots get delivered to voters. And they are the first ones to go out are in the state of North Carolina. They get mailed out. And so the election begins very, very soon. August 4th, 1964 is an anniversary that we commemorate today. August 4th, 1961, 3 years before the murders, the finding of Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman, 3 years before that was the birthday of Barack Obama, born in the United States. Fuck yes. And would go on to become the first African-American president who understood his place in the arc of the moral universe. August 4th, 1961 was also a day that changed this world. August 4th, 1970 is the birthday of Hakeem Jeffries, who today is the minority leader of the House of Representatives, the leader of the Democratic Party. It is Mr. Jeffries, Representative Jeffries, who will become the Speaker of the U.S. House, the first African-American Speaker of the U.S. House, the first Black Speaker of the U.S. House in American history, if and when the Democrats win the U.S. House of Representatives this fall. Those two men both born on August 4th. Mr. Jeffries, Representative Jeffries, today tweeted, we run 3 sentences, his tweet, 3 sentences. We run to win. We win to govern. We govern to improve the lives of everyday Americans. For common power, it starts with voting, because we've got to win to govern, to improve the lives of everybody. And voting is the only way that happens in a democracy. Today, August 4th, 2024, we have our first African Americans, first Southeast Asian American female major party nominee on the cusp of becoming president. If we work, if we take risks, if we are willing to do the day-to-day labor of democracy. And we have a candidate, Kamala Harris, former US Senator, who is married to a white Jewish man, Douglas Emhoff. So when they get elected, not if, when they get elected president, she does, when she gets elected president, we will have her and we will have him. And we will have never been here before. The arc of the moral universe, we like to say, using Dr. King's famous quote that he would deliver often in his speeches, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. It only bends towards justice, we know, if we bend it. If Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman, and thousands upon thousands of other civil rights heroes, many that we are daily inspired by at Common Power, have worked or work today to bend that arc. The truth is that the arc of the moral universe is not smooth and rounded. It is long, it is jagged, brutally contested, hard, painful. And it runs through every place on the globe, including Philadelphia, Mississippi, where the workers were killed, and Meridian, Mississippi, where they were found. And it certainly runs through the center of the largest superpower on the planet, the United States. So as you wonder what, or as we do occasionally wonder, what would I have done? Or what did I do? When the arc of the moral universe moment came for me, what did I do? It has come for us. It is here. May we all do and find the courage to do all that we can to bend that arc, to knock the doors, to make the phone calls, to write the postcards, to make the financial stretching contributions to support others to do that, to encourage one another, to hug and uplift each other, to believe that we can and we will and we must do this. At Common Power, we believe that everybody should have the ability to exercise the most common power that every citizen should have in a democracy: the right to cast a vote. That does not happen equally in this country. And so we fight today for a new Voting Rights Act to make it so. 60 years ago, we will never forget what they did then. We will carry them with us. Folks, this is our moment. It is our chance to bend the arc of the moral universe. Let us rise up. Let us do all we can. Let us do it together. Let us do it the same way they did it then, in an interracial coalition. Common power, small c, small p. It is our moment. Dr. Terry Ann Scott will give a talk tomorrow night. I will send the registration for this also tomorrow night, and then a week from tomorrow night, both on Zoom, about what happened in the year after the Voting Rights Act was passed. We understand that the arc continues to be bent. Dr. Terry Scott will delve into what occurred after that. And what occurred after that is that workers went into the American South to register voters, to give the chances for everybody, the opportunity for everybody to be part of this democracy. That work continues. It is our work of our lifetimes. It is our opportunity. It is our calling. It's not easy. It's dangerous. It's hard. It is discouraging. It costs time. It costs treasure. And oh, what a glorious thing to be part of it. It is the joy and the opportunity. Let's go, people. Together in solidarity, further together, as we say, a common power. Let's go.